This week's assignment, you're going to create an image of the International Maritime Signal number 5 flag using NetLogo. It will have two diagonal lines on it, and after we've completed it, we are going to add some custom colors to it. So, what exactly am I talking about? This will hopefully get you started. The International Maritime Signal flags, you've probably seen pictures of these. If you haven't ever seen it in real life, they're specific flags, and each flag has a specific a letter or number associated with it, and they're used to communicate specific meanings. One of the main ones you'll see that's the one to be concerned about, I'll point out, is the Bravo flag. It is this red flag with a little wedge out of it. And when you see this flying on a ship, you know they're handling explosives. It could be fuel, it could be ammunition, it could be whatever. So that's one of them. The other one, if you're ever boating, this is one that you should be aware of. I'm dragging my anchor. It's the Yankee flag, and sometimes if it's a big ship, that anchor can be really far, the chain connected to it, so it's something to be concerned about. The specific flag we're going to work on is the number 5, and you can see it has this yellow background with blue stripes on it, or you could look at it as a blue flag with yellow triangles in it. This is the one we're going to make, and then we will end up customizing the colors, and that's what you're going to turn in. So the first thing I want to do is bring up NetLogo. And again, the web version if you have that. And really the only thing we're going to need to do to get started on this is we need to start off unlocking our little padlock here. So again, I'm going to unlock this. You can tell it's unlocked when the little light green color comes up. In the top left hand corner, I'm going to create a button. I did that by right clicking. Again, if you are on a Mac device that doesn't have a right button, mouse button, if you use two fingers at the same time on the mouse pad, that'll bring up this menu. Select create button, and in here we want to, where it says commands, we want to type in setup. I'm going to click on OK, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the button itself. It doesn't do anything except bring up these little squares that lets me know I can edit and drag it around. I'm going to move this just a little bit, and I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to click on my world, which is the big black square, and I'm just going to drag it a little bit over here, and then I'm going to relock my lock. Okay, so everybody should get that done. And now you'll notice that the setup button is in red, and the reason is because the word setup, the computer doesn't know what that means. So we're going to add a procedure that makes it know what that button is. So I'm going to go down to here where it says NetLogo code. I'm clicking on that. I'm going to write to setup, all one word, no spaces. Hit enter 5 or 6 times. Doesn't matter if it's 5 or 6 or 7. And then I'm going to type in the word end, E-N-D. And I'm going to go ahead and enlarge my screen so you can see that a little bit more clearly. Alright, so I have 2 set up and I have end. I'm going to go underneath where I have 2 set up. I'm going to do clear dash all, and again that will just delete any previous objects in our world, colors all of our patches back to black, and resets our world to the default size. Alright, so just so we can make sure we're on the same track and everything's working, I'm going to go ahead and hit recompile here. That adds the code we just wrote set up, and you can see nothing happened. But the big issue here is that the word setup has gone from being in red to being in black, because now it knows what it means when I click on setup. The only thing we have right now happening is clearing everything, so nothing's changing. Alright, now here comes the big step. I want to create an image of this flag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to it and I'm clicking on it right now, and then I'm going to right click on it, and you don't have to do this, but I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do copy image, and then okay, so I've opened up Paint and I'm going to paste my flag, and then I'm going to go ahead and make my dimensions here 20 by 20. And here's 20 over here, and here's 20 over here, and that's the size we want to make our world, 20 by 20. And this will make a little bit more sense in a minute why I'm doing this. But basically we're going to end up making our world the same size. So I want to have 20 patches going this way, 20 patches going this way, and again when I go back to my NetLogo, that's the size I'm going to make my world, 20 by 20. And again, we have to start numbering at 0 when we resize our patch, our world. So it's going to be 0 to 19. So I do resize. I'm going to go ahead and do a user comment. I'm going to do semicolon, semicolon, thinking about a different computer language, semicolon, semicolon, and I'm going to say make a square flag right here. Now I'm going to say resize dash world, and then I got to put in my minimum x value, which is going to be 0, my maximum x value, which is going to be 19, and again that covers 20 patches. And then the same thing for my y value. I'm going to do 0, that's my minimum y value, and 19 is my maximum y value. And I'm going to set my patch size to something that's reasonable for my computer, and I'm going to do 20 here. So I'm going to recompile, hit setup, and it's made this square here. And again, I'm going to zoom out here just so you can see that it's a square, and you should have a square. Even though we already had a square, we're kind of customizing how big we want our square, and you'll see why this is important a little bit later. So in our flag, if we looked at our flag, I'm going to go back to Paint. Our flag had a yellow background with one blue stripe going across it one direction diagonally, and another blue stripe going across it in another direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my background yellow so we can make our blue stripes. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to leave a blank line here, then I'm going to start my user comment again, and again what I'm writing in here, the computer doesn't read it. It doesn't read it and say, oh, this is what I need to do. It doesn't do that. What this is it's letting people looking at the code know what the code underneath is doing, the little block of code underneath. So I'm going to say set world to yellow. And to do that, I have to ask patches, and then what I'm going to ask them to do, I have to put in brackets, starting square bracket, which is next to the letter P, a blank spot, and ending square bracket. Now again, a starting square bracket, you'll notice which way the little points are sticking. It's kind of like a staple sticking one way and then a staple sticking the other way. And again, the starting one, this first one, is next to the letter P, and then the other one is next to the starting square bracket. And again, I want my background to be yellow, so I'm going to say set P color, and that stands for patch color. So set, then a space bar, P color, all one word, and yellow. Alright, so just to check, I like doing one block of code at a time. I'm going to hit recompile, and then I'm going to come up here and hit set, and when I hit setup, everything is yellow. Alright, so now then I got to make my stripe, and this will take a little bit of time the first time we're doing it, but hopefully it will make some sense here. Alright, Alright, so what I want is a line going from here to here. Now there is this mathematical formula. You'll see it later in school quite a bit. Let me get rid of one of those. And it's y equals mx plus b. And this is called the slope-intercept form. And the reason it's called the slope-intercept form is this first value, whatever this m value is, we use the letter m for slope, whatever that is tells you the angle of this line. So this would be a negative slope because as we're reading from left to right, this line goes down in values, and this is a positive slope. This line goes up in value. And then the b tells us where it crosses the y-axis. So here's what you got to pay attention to, because this is a little bit tricky to think about. Even though our scales are labeled 0, 0 up here, in NetLogo, this very corner patch, which would be kind of right here, this one is our 0, 0 patch. So our x value is 0, our y value is 0. And then again in NetLogo, when we go all the way up here to this corner patch we're aiming at, it's going to have a value of 19 and 19. And the first couple of times you see this done, it's confusing, but after a while most people start catching on. So what we have to figure out with this point slope formula is our y value, which for us is going to be our patch x coordinate value, when it is equal to a certain number times the px core plus a certain number. We want that to light up, and that's how we end up getting this diagonal line. Alright, to figure out the slope, what we have to do is the slope is equal to, and this is going to be kind of weird at first, x2, do that better, sorry, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now it doesn't matter which set of which one of these you make your x2 and which one you make your y2, as long as this is the same. So, and what I mean by that is, if you decide this is your second set of coordinates, then this is your x2 value, this is your y2 value. If you make this your second value, then this is going to be your x2 and this is going to be your y2. I always try to make the positive numbers first. That's the one I pick. So let's just do that. So I'm going to put in our y2 value here is going to be 19. So we're going to have 19 minus 0, and then down here again our x2 is 19, so this ends up being, so our m, or our slope, all this and this are equal in meaning here, so our m ends up being 1, because we have 19 minus 0 is 19, 19 minus 0 is 19, 19 divided by 19 is 1. So what our px core is going to, what we're going to have for our m value is 1, and then we're going to multiply that. I'm going to do times with the little asterisk, px core plus whatever wherever it crosses the y-axis. Well, right here it crosses the y-axis at 0, so this would be 0. So that's what this formula translates into, and hopefully this will make sense in a minute. But before we do that, hopefully you'll also notice that we don't need to multiply, we don't need to put a 1 in here. This could just be if py core equals px core, then we're going to color that patch solid, and this will make pretty obvious sense usually once we put the calculations in there. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to do create blue stripe going lower left to upper right. And then we're going to start off like we normally do, where we ask patches. So we're going to say ask patches. Do my starting square bracket, my ending square bracket. And here's where that little equation comes in. We're going to say if py core, that stands for patches y coordinate value, equals the px core value. If that is true, then what we're going to do is set p color blue. And this should create a stripe, and you'll see some things about this that's kind of interesting. So that's what you should have. I'm going to recompile code, and I'm going to come up here and hit setup, and you'll see it makes it, and you'll see the size of an individual patch here. And we're going to talk about resolution. We're going to change this so it looks a little bit better later, but basically this is 0, 0, 1, 1. This is the x and y coordinates, so 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, all the way up to, we get to 19, 19. So that's how that works. Now then, I want to pay attention to this. If I change this to less than or equal to, and again, there's no space in here, we'll leave these together, what we'll see is that it will basically end up covering half of our square. So we're going to use this little technique to make a stripe. Now I'm going to go back to my drawing, and here's what I want to pay attention to. I'm thinking if this right here is 0 and from here to here is 19, so if this first patch is 0, this second patch is 1. I'm using those little tick marks on the side. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. This is 4. So I'm going to say if it's less than 5, then I want it to cut it. So instead of it starting right here, going across, oops, let me make a bigger line here so it's easier. So instead of starting off here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up changing my code to start off here. And we can notice that here it would be, again, I'm going to count here, about 3. So we're going to say less than 3. So if our patch, we're going to say that our line right here crosses the y-axis at 3. I'm going to go back to my code, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add plus 3, and I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my less than sign just so we can kind of see what it does. And you can see it shifted it up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make another blue line, and this, just kind of watch what I'm doing here. You don't have to do this. I just want to, because it'll be faster if you don't do it, because you don't have to change anything. But I'm going to go ahead and change this to a -3. So hopefully somebody can tell me what it does. Think about this. If this one made this line start 3 lines above, 3 places above the y-axis of the origin of 0, 0, then this one should make it go lower. So that's the whole idea. So I should have 2 lines, and that's kind of what we want for our lines, but I actually want them one less than this and one less than that. and that's not a big deal. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to connect these two in one statement. I want both of these in the same statement, but I'm going to say, okay, if this is less than this value, my px core plus 3, and I'm going to type in and then I'm going to take this and put it in here, and I'm going to say greater than. I'm going to set it to blue. I'm going to go ahead and delete this because we don't really need it. Now what I'm saying here is I'm kind of filling in the width here, like one did when I had it equals and I had this two separate little blocks of code. One made one line and one made the other line, and I said I had them equal to them, so they were just filling in. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say if anything is less than here, or if it's greater than this line, so less than this line, greater than this line, anything in between here is going to be filled in with blue. So I'm going to go ahead and go to setup, and I have my blue line going across here. Alright, so now then here comes the next part, a little trickier, and that is I want my line going this opposite direction, so I have my little blue X on my yellow background. I'm going to go back to here, and we're going to talk about this. So this right here, this top corner, this top patch would be at 0, 19. And again, not paying attention to these numbers here. We're just using this as a reference so we can count individual units, but our NetLogo patches are set up where this bottom corner is 0, 0. So up here would be 0, 19. And then our ending spot right here would be 19, 0. Now we're going to do what we did here, but with the set of numbers. And again, it doesn't matter which one we start off with is our second values or our first values. But I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to be our second set of values. This is our first set of values. So when I say the set of values, we'll use the one that's marked 1 for our y1 and x1 value. The one that's labeled 2, that's going to be our x2 and y2. So for our slope for this one, I'm going to do m equals, and then I have my 2, so my 19 to here, and then 0 here, and then I'm going to do minus, and then my x1 is 19, and then my y1 is 0. So when I do this, I'm going to end up having 19 over negative 19. And then what this reduces to is negative 1. 19 divided by negative 19 is negative 1. So basically it's the same slope we had before, but we're going down. That's why we have a negative. So as when we read something in math, we usually go from left to right. So this is what we call a negative slope going downhill. So we'd set up our same thing here that we talked about here before, except for this is going to be a negative. And the other issue is I'm going to add a negative in there. And then the other issue is that this crosses the y-axis at 19. So instead of down here where this one crossed at 0, we're going to end up adding a 19. So what this translates into is we're going to say y equals negative x plus 19. And where this y is, we're going to use our y coordinate for a patch, and this is going to be a px coordinate. Alright, confusing I know at first, but once you see this done a couple times, it gets easier and easier to understand. So I'm not making it any, I'm going to start off with this being simpler. I'm going to go ahead and do what I've done up there, I'm going to say create blue stripe going from upper left corner to lower right. Sorry, not lower, yeah, lower right. Alright. Alright, so I'm going to start off as patches. Do my starting square bracket, hand enter twice, do my ending square bracket, and I'm going to say if, and my parentheses are py core equals, and I would like to do it this way where I say negative px core, but I'm not going to be able to do that. It's going to give me an error. I'm going to go ahead and finish putting the rest in there. 19. If this is true, then I'm going to do my starting square bracket, ending square bracket. Again, if this if question is true for a patch, it does what's in between these two brackets, and that's going to be to set p color blue. Now you can see the way this py core is kind of this different color, and then this is black, and the reason it is because when we put this as like a negative value, it thinks that dash is a different word, so it makes it not understand what it is. So what we're going to do, so we can have that as a negative value, I'm going to say -1, then do a space in there, the time symbol, which is the shift 8, and then px core. So what it's going to do is multiply whatever the px core value is and make that a negative. Alright, so that's what we're doing there. We're going to come up here, and I'm going to do setup, and you can see it has the same blue line going the other way, diagonally the other way. And what we're going to do here is we are going to do very similar to what we did up here, except for we have to use these values. So here, so we have py core. We're going to do the same things we did up here, and if you remember, we added 3 here. We changed this less than sign to from an equal sign to a less than sign, I should say. So that's less than, and then we had this part right here, which is now negative px core. And then here we start off at 0 up here, so we added 0. We added 4 more because it's 0, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing where I go 19, 20, 21, 22. So plus 22 here, and then I'm going to do and py core is greater than, and I'm going to have to do that -1 times px core plus, and again I start off with 0 and I went to -3, so if I go 19, if I went 19, then I got to go 19, 18, 17, 16, so I'm going to put in a 16 there, and now that should make my blue stripe go in the other way. So I'm going to hit setup, and now I have my 2 blue stripes. Now the other thing we're going to end up doing, so we have our number 5 flag, and here's where we're going to modify it. Well, before we modify it, we need to clean it up a little bit. This resolution is not very good, so here is the deal. If I multiply this by 10, I would go from, if I want to go 0 to 20 and I multiply that by 10, I'd be going from 0 to 200. So that's what I'm going to do, and 0 to 200 would be going from 0 to 199, because again that's 200 spaces. I'm going to do the same for this dimension, and to make it fit on the screen, now I've got to reduce it by 10. So 20 divided by 10 would be 2. I'm going to hit recompile. You're going to see we're going to have one little issue here that we got to resolve, but that's alright. I'm going to hit setup, and it takes a little bit of time because it's got, you see my lines are better, but this one is crossing down here instead of all the way up here. But my line looks a little. Okay, so now you can see that when we made this bigger, our stripe is not as wide as it used to be going all the way across. This one still goes from the corner to the corner like it should, but it's not as wide. And then this one is down here because again it's on patch 20 and we need it all the way up here. So just like we changed these factors by a factor of 10, multiplying these by 10, divided this number by 10, we're going to go ahead and add 10. So 3 times 10 is 30, and then 3 times 10 is 30 here. So we're just going to end up adding a 0 to these codes. We're going to make this 120, and we're going to make this one 160. Now that should scale everything accordingly. I'm going to recompile my code. And hit setup. And now I have my big X in the center there. Alright, so now the last part of your assignment is I'm giving you a custom color. And you can find the custom color. It's in that link that I gave you. So let's say I gave you deep pink. So you're going to go to the website that I gave you. It's the Wikipedia for web colors. And the reason I call web colors is these are the ones that are safe to use on the internet, the web. And the reason they're safe is they're values that all systems should understand. So let's say I gave you deep pink for one of your colors. So I'm going to pick that. I'm going to pick the RGB values, the 3 value. So it's 255 is the max value. 255, 20 out of the 255 is green, and 147 here. I'm going to copy those. I'm going to go back to my code, and where I have yellow, I'm going to put those values in there. And again, so the computer, this code will recognize it, NetLogo will recognize it as RGB. I have to put it in the set of brackets, so a starting square bracket, ending square bracket. Before I add my other color, I'm going to go ahead and do recompile and test it. I find it a lot easier if you make one change at a time. It's easier to troubleshoot. So there's my background color, and I think to go with that I am going to use lawn green instead of lime green. So I'm going to copy those values, go back down to my code, and where I say set these to blue, I'm going to do there. Go ahead, get rid of that space, do my brackets. And so I'm setting both of these colors. I'm going to go ahead and change this one, or else I'd only have one stripe that color. Recompile code. And do setup now. And now I've done my custom colors. So again, this is going to be your end assignment. You got to make the flag, and then you're just going to send me an image of your finished flag with your custom colors and a copy of your code, and that's what I'm expecting from you. Now if you want to earn extra credit, here is the deal with the extra credit. If you make this flag but then put a border all the way around it with a third color of your choice, so it has all the way around it a specific one color, so it makes it like a frame, I'll give you an additional 8 bonus points. So if you want to add that customization, you can. Again, if you need help with this, I have office hours from 1:30 to 3 every day. You can drop in and I will be happy to help you. Thanks again, and I will see you later.